Ladies and gentlemen, I have a tragic fact. It was on NPR about 10 days ago. It was probably the 1st of November or the 5th of November, something like that. On NPR, they reported, I'm surprised they would report this, they reported that there are pockets of diseases cropping up in the United States. Diseases we haven't seen for generations, like diphtheria, and whooping cough, and yellow fever, and bloody flux, and why? Why? Well, it's the places where they're popping up. It's educated families that are having the diseases. Generally not the uneducated areas of the country, not the poor areas, right? It's richer, upper middle class children that are getting these weird childhood diseases that we haven't seen since before World War II in many cases. Why? Well, I'll just put that on the table for a second. It turns out that the rate of autism is on the rise and has been for some years. Now, I think that the reason for this is the same as the rise of ADHD and ADD. Misdiagnosis, bad public schools, a desire to medicate to fix the problem because they think the medication might fix it. And so they get a kid in who has a little bit problem paying attention to the doctor or doesn't like listening to his mom, and they label him autistic. It's easy. And then you put him in special classes where they give him material more slowly, they don't work with him as much, they let him play more, and that slows his development down even more. Then go down the road 3 or 4 years, and you've got an autistic child who people are always telling him, you can't pay attention very good, you can't learn to read, you don't know how to memorize things. They tell the kids this stuff, and it's not true. The kid can memorize. Just like ADD kids can focus and pay attention, it's just you have to give them something to focus on. And they can memorize stuff. Dyslexic kids can learn to read, they can memorize stuff. It's not true, you just have to give them, you have to teach them. I've had kids in my school with these problems, so I know that this is overdiagnosis, and it's the symptom of, oh, poor little baby, you're okay, don't worry, don't feel bad that you can't do this or that. There's a reason that you can't do it. The reason you can't spell isn't because you won't focus. The reason you can't spell is because your brain is broken. Right? So that's why autism's on the rise. But certain people don't have this view. They believe autism's on the rise for some reason. They're not sure why. We've been using vaccines in this country for a long time, and autism's taken off in the 1990s. And why? And somebody dreamed up the idea that the mercury and stuff in vaccines is causing it. Now, why we didn't have this alarming rise in autism decades ago, I don't know. And why there is absolutely no link between their idea and the reality, I don't know. I do know because it's not linked. Autism, the rise of autism is false, and the mercury is not causing it. So I actually had a registered nurse, an RN, who I knew personally from Utah, my friend's wife, telling my wife not to go have her immunization shots and not to give the baby the immunization shot. She says they've got mercury in them. And they batted back and forth, and Bobby Sue went and found some stuff on the internet and said, what about this, and what about this, and what about this? And finally the woman just says, well, you do what you think's right with your baby, after the following sentence. I'm proud of it. I gave her the sentence. I said, tell her this. Tell her that the damage done over the long term by mercury is less devastating than dying of childhood diseases. That, I thought, is pretty ironclad right there. You think that there's a possibility that your child's brain may, no one's given any evidence for this, but somebody's got the theory, maybe the vaccine will affect your child's brain in some deleterious way. Not really bad, but it's just not good to put poisons in your body, right? You don't want to put a poison in your body. Not good for you. Is it better to die of childhood diseases? Is it better to die of the bloody flux when you're 3 than to have some mercury in your veins? Now, it's such a low dose of mercury. We read up on it, and it's a very low dose of mercury in the shot. It causes redness and swelling around the area of the injection, and that's it. It doesn't show up in the body in any heavy way. It's not that large of a dose of mercury. But even if it were, even if we saw that 0.1% of the kids who got the shot died of mercury overload, that's still way better than having 25% of our children die of childhood diseases. I mean, back in London in the 1800s and stuff, as 40 or 50% of children died of childhood diseases. There was one guy who knew Thomas Jefferson or Benjamin Franklin or somebody in Philadelphia, I'm pretty sure the city was, and him and his wife had 14 children back at the time of the Constitution in the late 1700s. 14 children they had, none of which had lived to adulthood. Now, a little mercury in the kid, or death. So this is just getting more and more popular, and it would be nice if the media, instead of coming out and saying, what's causing autism, and are vaccines hurting your child, and stuff, they should be coming out and saying, warning, death of infants on the rise, 700% increase in infantile death from childhood diseases in the last year. That's the kind of story they need to be carrying. And they're not. And it's ridiculous. I'm really surprised it was on NPR. I'm really surprised. What I expect to hear on NPR is something like, coming up next, are vaccines causing autism? Not the story that they... I will be happy to see the press in the future telling society about this, saying to America, go get the damn shots. The mercury's not as bad as whooping cough or whatever else. Sad. Sad to see, to think of hundreds of lives lost for a non-scientific theory that had no evidence for it. People just pop these theories out for fun, irresponsibly, and then they go around the country demanding that other people follow them on it, right? And we've reduced the effectiveness of some vaccines and quit giving some vaccines because of the hatred of mercury in them. Mercury is a very, very good way to keep stuff from growing inside the vial. You want these. You don't want to inject people with infected stuff. You want to give them the exact virus or whatever you're trying to give them, not some myriad of other little things or mold or whatever. And mercury is an effective way to stop that. And it's much better than childhood disease. I guess I'll rest my case there. If you are one of the people who thinks that inoculation is more dangerous than childhood diseases, research it a little bit and get your head on straight. Okay, this is not funny. These little kids can't choose to have the shots on their own. The adults make these decisions for them, and they are stupid, uneducated decisions. It's a shame. That's the state of science today. Now, I'm done. I'll go now. Right after I mentioned in the 1960s they had something called I can't remember. Some sort of cleaning stuff. I don't know. I can't remember what it's called. But Ayn Rand talked about this. All of a sudden, there's this huge outcry in the press that benzodiazepine or whatever, some sort of cleaning stuff, is dangerous. There's no evidence for it. It's just that, nature is better than chemicals, and this is a chemical, and so all across the nation, hospitals and stuff quit using it, and it was just a fad. It's just a popular thing to do, was to quit using this particular chemical. And in no time, babies were dying. In wards all across the country because it was a protection against staph infection. So they let staph infection invade just for the fun of it. No scientific reason. And now we're letting childhood diseases come back just for the fun of it.